for welcoming us to your awesome school. It's great to be here today with our Energy Minister Simeon and Education Minister Erica Stanford. And Hillmorton High is a pretty special school. My auntie spent probably 20 plus years teaching here, and it's a real privilege to be with you today. Look, the announcement we want to talk about today is that the government is committing $30 million to put solar panels on up to 500 schools nationwide, with between 80 and 100 schools receiving them in the first year. It's a move that will save schools, we think, on average about $8,000 a year in their electricity bills, and will give them obviously greater energy security, which is a big focus of our government. Energy affordability and energy independence as part of national security are really top of mind for our government, especially at a time when supply challenges are actually driving up costs for Kiwis and schools. This initiative will reduce the school's reliance on the grid, and they'll be able to sell back any excess electricity they produce into the grid, and modelling by ECA shows that the panels themselves will pay back within a 5 to 7 year period. Another great feature of solar on schools is that they will support communities during an emergency, with many of our schools across New Zealand playing an absolutely crucial role in times such as severe weather events. And it will also create a number of jobs, obviously, in terms of manufacturing, product and installation, and to the software and the management systems that actually run the solar panel systems will be really important as well. The bottom line is we want to have great schools. We want schools to be running well physically in order for our young Kiwis to be able to learn and optimise their learning and be a great environment for them to do that in. We know that education is the pathway to making New Zealand more prosperous, and that's why we're so focused, and Minister Stanford has done such a great job of overhauling our education system so that we are here together working to build a truly world-class education system that sets our kids up to go and do anything they want to do in life and in the world. It's just another example of how we're fixing the basics and building the future. And with that, I'll hand over to, is it Simeon or Erica? Yep, Simeon. There you go.
Well, thank you, Prime Minister. It's wonderful to be here at Hillmorton High School with you and also with the Minister of Education, Honourable Erica Stanford, and Nationals Workroom candidate Tracy Summerfield to announce today's announcement of $30 million from Budget 26 to support up to 500 schools to be able to put solar on their schools. This funding is a joint funding from ECA, Energy Efficiency and Conservation Authority, and also from the Ministry of Education. We'll fund up to 500 schools to receive solar panels. Some will also receive batteries. Some will get an energy management system which will allow them to reduce the energy use during the day. And at some schools it will also remove diesel boilers as well. Ultimately, this is about making sure we have a more resilient education system, and as the Prime Minister said, it not only improves affordability, it also improves resilience across our school communities. We all know how important schools are, particularly in the times of emergencies, and by making them more resilient, it helps to support that resilience in the community. New Zealand does face significant challenges when it comes to our energy system. Addressing dry year risk is one of our key priorities as Minister of Education, but initiatives like this support that community resilience, which is also important alongside the national resilience that our government is very focused on doing. It's also about making sure we invest in new technologies and new innovations, and the Solar on Schools program does all of these things. It's a great initiative and will make a big difference. And most importantly, solar, the sun does not have to go through the Strait of Hormuz.
Did you want to answer that?
Thank you, just briefly. Well, we picked a great day to announce solar, didn't we? Rain slightly falling. Look, one of the things that schools often say to me is that they're using a lot of their ops grant in covering electricity bills, and we want them to be using that on young people. We're trying to get as much resource to the front line as we can so that that pressure on the operational grant is relieved so that they can then put that into young people in learning. Over the next few months, the Ministry of Education will be determining the first few schools. They'll be using a different range of criteria, but essentially they'll be looking at schools that have high energy use, those that have energy insecurity, those, as Minister Brown said, that are in communities that may become an emergency hub, those schools that we're looking at replacing their diesel boiler. There's about 65 of those, and we'll be identifying and talking to those schools in the next few months, and we'll be starting construction on those, or installation completion, I should say, by the end of the year. But over the next 3 years, we'll have those 500 schools underway. And this really is about making sure that schools can focus on teaching the basics brilliantly, making sure our young people are getting a great education so they can go on to live the life that they want. Thank you.
Okay. Hey, why don't we take a few questions on the announcement, and then we'll do a few quick questions on the day, and then we'll actually get into the school and actually get a visit with Sam and the team. Take questions on the announcement per se.
Are you expecting to roll it out to further than 500 schools?
Yeah, I'll let the Minister talk to that.
Well, the funding at the moment is set aside for 500 schools. Ultimately, the Minister of Education will know the exact profile of every school in the country, but this is get a large number of schools done. In terms of rolling it out further, that would be a question for future budgets. But this is a big investment in solar on hundreds of schools up and down the country. As I said, it's $20 million from ECA, $10 million from the Ministry of Education. It's going to make a big difference, and we'll see the benefits of it and be able to make future decisions about future schools in the future.
Minister, where's the funding come from?
We've found in terms of the Ministry from ECA, there's been some savings reprioritisations. Some of it's underspends from the last government's Giddy Fund, which we wrapped up earlier in the term. Others has been from consolidations such as Ariake, which was a duplication of ECA, which was set up by the previous government. Actually, what we're doing is actually reinvesting that money actually into clean energy, which is what we want to be doing. So actual investment in actual projects which will make clean energy available to schools, save them money, and as the Minister of Education said, they can then put their ops money into actually teaching kids, which saves them money on their power bills.
Does this have more environmental benefits than Ariake did?
Well, Ariake had duplication, and part of this government's agenda is to remove that duplication which was creeping in and ballooning under the previous government. That's why we're trying to find savings. All ministers have had to find efficiencies in the back office. Some of those functions will sit now with ECA. ECA already does a lot of innovation in many of the same functions. We don't need to have duplication in government. We need to have a government which is efficient, and that means we can then invest that money into action, which really makes a difference. 500 schools across the country will be able to have solar on their schools, save them money on their power bills, means they can actually invest that into kids' learning. That's a great win-win story for government and also taxpayers and for schools and our kids.
Yeah, look, that'll sit with the Ministry of Education. We, as you know, we're investing $10 million out of our baselines, and we'll use ongoing baseline funding for that to help. It will be also shared with schools. There'll be some that sits with schools, but there'll be some that sits with the Ministry of Education, depending on what happens over time.
Is there a timeline on this? When do you expect these to be installed in the schools?
We'll be doing the first couple of hundred over the summer school holidays.
Will this, the benefits from the cost savings, will this make up for the $12 million gap in operational grants funding, just because it hasn't kept up with inflation over the last 5 years?
I think you mean 12%. Is that what the unions have been saying? I understand. As I've said many times, that not all of the things that we deliver to schools are via the operational grant. We have been delivering professional learning and development in the tens of millions of dollars, school resources, the maths books, the writing kits, directly to the front line to save schools having to use that from their ops grant. So while we made a 2% increase this year and a 2% increase last year, we are also delivering to the front line by exactly what we're doing today, by helping them reduce the energy bills, but also providing free resources that they would have otherwise had to pay for themselves. So there's we're doing it in a number of ways, supporting schools, not only through their ops grant. Sorry,
Yeah,
I'll stay here. There'll be a range of different things that the Ministry are going through at the moment. So it'll be whether or not the school has the ability to actually have the panels in the first place. They will look at whether or not they're a high energy use school. They will look at whether or not they are a boiler replacement school, or they have energy security issues, or whether they are in a school in a rural community that is used as a hub during an emergency, and will be a really good idea for us to have solar panels so that we've got electricity in a rural and isolated area. So there'll be a number of things, and those first 200 will be told over sort of June, July period of time.
And these are just public schools?
Yes, they will be.
Just in terms of those boiler replacements, will you be looking at sort of hot water heat pump type things, or biomass?
Yeah, there's a range of different options depending on the size of the school. So the ones that are very small we can replace with just heat pumps. When they become slightly bigger, then we have to look at different options, and we're going through that at the moment. And there are a couple of really big schools that require us literally to rip everything out and replace it, and that's going to take a bit more time. So it'll be different systems for different schools depending on the size.
So just on another topic, are you wanting tradies to be paid the same as qualified teachers?
I think there's an equity here where you've got teachers who are potentially master builders, have worked for 40 years in their career and come into a school to teach, and they have to go and be paid as a lat rather than a qualified teacher. And I've spoken to so many principals who say to me, it is really tough for us to get great tradespeople teaching in our schools because we cannot pay them the same. I think there is a general acceptance by the sector, by principals and teachers and families and kids, that these people should be on the same pay scale as everybody else, and we need to work with the unions on how we make that happen, rather than having to put them through a 3-year teaching degree. Is there something else we can do? Maybe the on-site teacher training program for a year where they get paid to do it. There has to be options, otherwise we're not going to be able to employ these amazingly qualified people in our schools, and the sector, as far as I'm aware, the people who've spoken to me are very on board with that.
Yeah. Okay. Should we go to other topics? Yep.
Yes, please.
Yep.
Crop farming. I know you were attending an open day this afternoon. Do you have concerns about the state of that sector?
Yeah, look, it's been a challenging time. You've had a number of weather events, certainly here in Canterbury, that have impacted as well. We'll talk a little bit about the fuel impacts, but the good news is that product is getting to market. That there's also huge opportunities. There's some challenges, but there's also huge opportunities. When I look at what the Indian FTA means, for example, for malt in this region here, and the export opportunities that creates with the removal of tariffs going into India. When we look at, I think there's a huge opportunity as well. So, look, I'm looking forward to catching up with them, understanding what their particular issues are. I know it's always a challenging time with arable. Obviously, other parts of the sector are doing incredibly well. It'll just be a good chance to engage and hear the issues.
Can the government do anything to the sector at the moment?
Well, the government's doing what it can do, which is to go out there in the world and create lots of new opportunities for the arable producers to export their products around the world. There's a huge opportunity for us to do exactly that. The fuel crisis has been challenging, but our products are getting to market, as evidenced by the fact that we just had a record trade balance in the month of April of $2 billion. So a lot of our primary industry products are getting to market, irrespective of the fuel challenges and the Middle East challenges, which is fantastic. And we're seeing very good growth in traditional markets. But having opened up the EU FTA, the UK FTA, the GCC and UAE, coupled with a new China FTA, India FTA coming, and growth in our existing markets, you've seen an outstanding performance, as you've seen with our exports, up over $12 billion. But a big part of the government's job is to get out there in the world and to create those opportunities, so actually those arable producers can move their product around to where there is the best margins in order to maximise their own profitability at home.
That's somewhat difficult to do with the likes of the Canes and Watties are shutting up shop, though, isn't it?
Well, it's been challenging for sure, and I know with respect to the frozen food shutdown here in Canterbury, difficult and challenging. A number of reasons and commercial decisions for why Heinz Watties made those decisions, and actually made similar decisions given the performance of the group globally around the world as well. But that for sure very challenging. But they are commercial decisions, and what we can do as government is create the conditions for them to be able to grow, and then it's up for them to go find those markets and get their products to market and to improve their margins and profitability.
Large numbers, though, are converting to dairy. They're giving up on
Well, that's their decision. That's their decision. You're a property owner, you've got property rights. It's up to you as to how you think you can best use your land in order to maximise your income and your profitability. That is a decision for individual landowners and property owners with property rights to make. And that has been the history of New Zealand over the last 150 years. We've seen land be used in lots of different ways. We're seeing land be converted into kiwi fruit at the moment. We've got a massive growth of kiwi fruit in parts of the country that we previously didn't have. There are things that the government needs to do about water storage, and we've got some big projects here, as you know, Muri, Waimakariri, Apua as well, that have been, we're making it more permissible with a lot of the RMA consenting to make it easier to get water storage done and consenting done much quicker as well. So our job is to get the settings right, and then it's up for individual entrepreneurs and business owners and growers to actually get on with what they want to get on with.
hospitality sector at the moment. A lot of operators coming out saying the cost pressures are getting too much and quite a few are closing down.
Yeah, look, I mean, we are concerned in general. I mean, we know we're going through a very difficult and challenging time. The fuel crisis has led to rising costs for a lot of inputs for many businesses in New Zealand, but also around the world, obviously. And we know it's a difficult time. We expect the banks to stand by those businesses as they go through that transition, and we as a government are making sure we're not making things worse as we did, as the Labor government did, frankly, through the COVID experience. And actually, we want to minimise the impact on inflation and minimise the impact on growth. And I think you've seen our budget, coming through last week to say this is an economy that's projected to grow at 2.7% over the next 4 years. That is faster than the UK, the EU, Australia, Canada, and many other countries, Japan included. Secondly, it's going to generate 220,000 jobs, and whether that's in hospitality or in other sectors. And as Erica and I were at a Trades Academy yesterday, talking about our Trades Academy announcement, there's a huge opportunity for us to take kids out of schools like this and get them into those jobs over the next 4 years. And most importantly, what you want to see is improving affordability, and that means that wages are growing faster than prices, and that is fundamentally what we need to do, and it's good to see it in our forecasts, that actually that's what enables New Zealanders to get ahead.
Last couple of days.
Should the government step in to save in the line sector?
No. I mean, we'll have a look at what we can do, whether there's regulatory settings, whether there's any facilitation that we can provide, and Minister Peters will go off and have a look at that. But I think it's a pretty tough deal for the taxpayer of New Zealand to sit there and say we're going to fund a professional sports team. I think the Labor government piled $4 million in and it's all gone. And I think thirdly, any decision to make an investment like that would need cabinet decision, and I think it'd be a pretty tough brief to ministers who actually want to make sure they make investments like we're making here today in schools and hospitals across the country. I think that's what New Zealanders would prefer us to do, and we are a responsible government that practices financial discipline and good economic management, because if we don't, we end up with a lot of pain and suffering for people, and we want to make sure the money gets to the right use and has the biggest impact that it possibly can. Okay.
Just in regards to local government, Wellington Mayor Angela Little
Yeah.
said that 10 weeks is not long enough to deliver a detailed plan in terms of amalgamating councils. What is your response?
Well, look, firstly, I just want to thank Andrew, because he's one of the mayors that's come out and said, hey, listen, he's putting his support behind amalgamation, which is coming from the grassroots up of councils, having worked together on Three Waters, having worked together on city and regional deals, have come together and said, hey, listen, maybe there's more synergy if we actually did formally work together through an amalgamated state. So I appreciate his remarks on that. I appreciate the deadline is tight, but frankly, not having a deadline on it means that the conversation dribbles on forever and ever, as it's prone to do. So, it's putting a deadline there. I know it's putting pressure on the system, but it's actually better that we make a decision, hard yes, hard no, and move forward rather than just have open-ended debate and discussion for the next few years, which is not acceptable.
Cool. Would you be supportive of like a national fed tax or regional?
We've talked about that in the past. We've said very clearly that's not something we're up for this term, but Minister Upson is exploring that, and it's something we'd look at in the second term.
Cool.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks guys. Have a good day. Right.